Rent is falling across the U.S. Is it crashing? How about the Bank of America CEO predicting 2 years of pain ahead in the housing market? But how's that relevant to you? And of course, real estate experts giving their predictions on what's going to happen in 2023. That's what we're getting into right now. Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Robert Bean, and this is Scale Through the Fail, where we talk about real estate news, noise, and what's next. Now, listen, there's some crazy things going on right now in the market. It's been pretty heated. You'd think in December we'd have a little bit of a jolly time, but in reality, we're seeing some pretty staggering headlines. So today we are going to be discussing with some special guests why rents are falling across the US, and if that's a good or bad thing for the industry. We're going to be talking about the CEO of one of the nation's largest banks and his pain that he's predicting for 2023. And also, we're going to bring in a few experts to discuss the housing market. But before we get into that, I've got a special guest who is going to give us a bit of an update on the mortgage minutes. All right, I am going to go ahead and bring in Larry, the mortgage guy. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Sort of. I was up till 2:30, but don't worry about that.
I think that comes with the territory when you become a parent. Probably.
That's right. That's right. So, Larry, we're starting this new segment, and super glad to have you be a part of it, where you're going to go ahead and give us the audience a mortgage update, just so we can kind of see what's going on in the market. I kind of feel like it's when they do those quick announcements, and the New York Stock Exchange was up 3.5. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to throw in your screen. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, brother, take it away.
Okay, so I think anyone who's been paying attention to the market and mortgage rates lately has been hearing a lot of bad news or not so happy positive news, right? But I'm glad to say that I guess my first time speaking with you guys here about mortgage rates, I'm actually here to bring great news. In fact,
Christmas came early.
Yes. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, the rates have been the lowest since mid-September, right? So for the last 45 days, the rates were higher than it is today. So that's great news, because that's sort of an indication, in my perspective, that things are sort of kind of getting back to normal, right? Okay. Because the high rates, of course, was the new normal after our super low rates, a year ago or so, right? So if you can see here, this is from Mortgage News Daily. They showed that, and when I say today, I'm talking about yesterday's, because they don't update the rates until later on, because this is a morning show and the rates update a little bit later. But as of December 1st, it was at 6.29%. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I was seeing some sevens. We even talked about, I think, a week or two ago, about even as high as an 8, like 8.125, I think it was.
Yes.
So that's very interesting to see that.
Yes, and I want to show you something that's kind of shocking to me. Reading this, it actually, since mid-September, have dropped almost an entire point. You see that?
It went from why do you think that happened? An entire point is pretty staggering.
Yes. Well, based on the news article that I read, there was a lot of mortgage-backed securities being bought around that time. November 10th is actually when it started. So you can see right here where there's like a sharp drop right here. I actually kind of highlighted it. That's when the mortgage-backed securities started being bought up a lot more, and whenever MBS gets bought up, that's always good for rates. So that is
Hmm.
probably the biggest response. Also, uh, the improvement for today is probably based on was a response from the Fed Chair Powell saying that they're expecting stronger than expected bond buying as part of the month-end trading process. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So so walk us through. So we got the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 6.29,
Mm-hmm.
down or down in a good way, a
Yes.
percent over the last month. Now, I'm seeing a little trend there right at the end of that chart. I mean, do we expect, or do you expect uh, a continued downward trend, or do you think it's going to jump right back up?
Well, as I was mentioning the MBS purchase, right? As you can see here, it started going down around this time. And this is where the rates started going down around July-ish, right? And then it started going back up a little bit, and it had a huge uptick right here. Okay, so that, I mean, it really depends on how people start buying the MBS, right? But I do expect it to stay at least low or stable. Uh, but it really depends on what happens with the announcement today from the Department of Labor. Okay,
Uh-huh.
because the Fed is primarily focused on inflation, but the labor market data is also not too distant second in terms of what they consider in terms of what they do with the rates, right?
Interesting.
So if job creation becomes weaker, right, like the wage growth decreases or whatever, then the Fed will basically conclude that there's not as much room to be aggressive with this fight against inflation without doing any serious damage to the economy. So that would actually lead to a good day for rates if the growth market or the labor market becomes weaker. Okay, but if the opposite happens, meaning there's job growth or there's a positive or stronger labor data, then that actually can lead to a bounce back up in interest rates.
Interesting.
Mhm.
That's really interesting.
And that's
So
today.
what we're
Today they're going to
looking
talk about
for
that.
today, for anybody who's, layman terms, for an agent tuning in who doesn't study this stuff, or a client, a consumer tuning in, what are they looking for today in a good way? What's going to spell something positive? Like, look for this, and if this happens, more than likely, we're going to be in a better position.
Again, if the Department of Labor announces weaker job creation, or if what wage growth is decreasing, then that's good news for interest rates.
Okay. So we're looking at basically job growth and labor.
Yes,
What's going on in labor?
I mean, it's sad to say, but we want it to be weaker, right? We want it to not be as strong, because if it's stronger, then the Fed will try to fight inflation by increasing rates, and that affects everything, right?
What's so
So
funny is that when I was first studying and learning what this stuff meant, I I turned around and I was like, oh, okay. Um, People are still spending strong. That must be a good thing. And then Jerome Powell goes, people are still spending money too fast. We need to raise the interest rates more. And I'm like, wait, but don't you want, isn't money going into the economy good? But then you have to learn, like, at least to my understanding, which for everybody listening, I'm never going to claim to be a financial expert or a tax advisor or a bonds expert. But from what I understand, it's the type of spending. It's not, he's not talking about Larry going down and getting his favorite coffee at Starbucks. He's talking about Larry going and getting a low interest loan, opening up a line of credit, because those lines of credits come from a bank, and that bank is insured by the FDIC. And so basically anything that the government touches when it comes to money, and borrowing and lending and things like that, if people don't slow down on that, that's where he gets nervous. And that's where he's talking about um, raising the interest rates to get people to slow down, essentially.
yes, and if you notice in this chart right here, it is saying that today's rate trends, because again, rates are starting to populate for today, they do believe that the prices are significantly weaker so far today. So that actually can most likely result in higher mortgage rates for today. So that can also be affecting what we see right now. So basically, what I'm telling you today might be totally different on Monday.
So do you think, from your perspective, and it just came to mind right now, seeing all these numbers and the amazing information you're given, do you think an agent should be setting this stuff daily? Or do you think weekly tuning into a segment like this, your honest opinion, is enough for them to get an understanding and know what to do with it?
So I believe that an agent who is aware of what's going on is always going to be more prepared to have conversations with clients, but also it can lead to where you focus your energy in terms of your marketing or your efforts. I always tell people, I mean, I'm talking about clients and real estate agents, you should always get yourselves pre-approved right away, just in case. Let's put it this way, right? Let's just be really honest here. Let's pretend I got someone to get pre-approved last week, and then the rates dropped like we saw, right? And they were ready to make an offer, and they did make an offer, and they're under contract, right? And they're under contract at a 7% interest rate. Well, now they're looking at sixes. That's when I would lock the rate, and you would have enjoyed the lowest rate since mid-September. But if the rates go up today and you didn't lock, then you would actually have missed the opportunity. But if I was talking to you yesterday and you were under contract, I would have locked your rate, and if rates go up, it doesn't matter to you because you got the lower rate literally almost the whole point since, again, mid-September. So that's why it's always good to be prepared. Even if you're like, I don't know about buying, the rates are high, whatever, at least be pre-approved. And if you can make a move really fast and react, you have a part of the major part of the steps already taken care of as a home buyer. So I think real estate agents should really push their clients to get pre-approved, even if they don't plan on making a purchase right away. You want to have, I mean, it may be a bad analogy, but you want to be loaded, ready to pull the trigger, right?
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Larry.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're always about making this super easy. Basically, we're all about an agent being able to tune in, see what we're talking about, and know whether they need to know this or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dive in deeper, understand this more, or whether they can trash it and say it's noise, right? Whether it's news or noise, and then what to do with it next. That's why our slogan is real estate news, noise, and what's next. So for this point change here in the market, what would you say agents should go do with this information today with any clients they're talking to? What would you tell them to go do? Like, hey, go talk to your clients or anybody you're talking to right now and teach them this, tell them this, or something like it.
So I'm going to just pretend that I would have the same conversation. I would tell my clients, hey, look, the rates actually dropped dramatically, almost the whole point since a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, right? The fact that you're not pre-approved, we couldn't make a decision. We can make a move. So you missed out on the opportunity, right? Rates might go up today, and it might go back, keep on going up, right? So it's better to just go ahead and be prepared, be ready right now, because of course nothing happens until you actually sign on the dotted line and close. So why not be prepared? So I would employ all the people that were waiting for the rates to get better. They did get better just now, right? And you missed out on it. So
That's
the people
a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So when people say, I'm going to wait till the rates go get lower, I'm going to be like, what? Guess what happened to the last guy who said that? They missed out.
So what I'm taking away, tell me if you think this is correct. And then we're going to get into the main subjects for today. Is there was a shift in a point, which is pretty significant over the last month. Any agent should be going to their clients and saying, listen, remember how you didn't want to get pre-approved last month? Remember how you didn't want to go those things? You missed out on an entire point. What if you miss out another one? Or what if it goes up again?
Yes.
Get pre-approved now so that we're ready to lock it in. The worst that happens is we're not ready and we don't lock it in, but we're at least prepared if the opportunity arises.
Absolutely.
You think that's a pretty good summary?
100%. Yes.
Awesome. And we are right at the 15-minute mark, which means we are going to move into our discussions. Larry, I'm going to take you off for like a couple minutes, and then I'm going to bring you right back in for the discussion of today. Larry, thanks so much for that mortgage minute. Really appreciate your insight on everything.
No problem. Appreciate you guys.
Shout out to Trina Foster. Good morning to you as well. And Caitlin, she said, as an agent, I think it's important to watch this. I do too. I really do. All right, guys, let's get into our main topics for today. They're going to look a little odd on my screen when I pull them up because Canva's not letting me download them into slides, and then I upload them into StreamYard. Not sure what's going on. So you're just gonna have to see my million tabs, and this is only one of my windows. So, guys, special guest joining us today. You know him as the burly lumberjack of real estate. Let's welcome Chris Rains. Chris, good morning, buddy. You have to unmute yourself. I know, in the lumberjack world, Mike's.
I was giving you a little bit of blue steel look there for a second.
Oh, your blue steel?
Yeah, it was, somebody's got to look good on this show.
Oh, man, you crack me up, man. Always coming in with the jokes. So, Chris, we have some pretty crazy topics to cover today. I'm pretty excited that we get to actually discuss them. I gotta pull it up on another screen again because I couldn't upload the slides for some odd reason. But we're gonna go ahead and bring back Larry, the mortgage guy, because we like to have three people. Otherwise, it's just me telling Chris to stop making dad jokes, and it's just like, do we even talk about the subjects? Larry, welcome back, brother. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So, guys, this one's pretty crazy. This is counter to what a lot of real estate agents are posting. And so I'm wondering if you guys have seen anything about this, but here's kind of the little bit of a headline. Rents are starting to fall across the U.S. and then drop even more in 2023. Now, here's where it gets interesting, okay? So I'm checking my notes. So Tom Lawyer, which is a former Fannie Mae economist. For those who don't know, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they take care of all the federally backed and organized loans for your homes. Most homes. Would you agree, Larry? Most homes are bought with some sort of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac product.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay. So he's a former Fannie Mae economist. He wrote in a recent real estate article or his newsletter that he expects rents across the country to not just slow down, but to experience a rare actual decline in real dollar amounts next year. And those declines, he believes, are likely to spread and accelerate within 2023. Now, this is pretty wild, okay, when it comes to stuff like this, because that's unheard of. So I didn't have as much time to do some digging, but I do have a little bit of context to bring. But first, I kind of want to let's start with you, Chris. What's your initial take? And if you want to speak purely from a local perspective, that is 100% okay.
So my initial take, usually this is going to fall right along with the housing market trends for the most part. So if prices are falling a little bit on the housing market, and when I say a little bit, I'm talking like 1 to 3%, maybe not even that much over, what we've been seeing. Maybe rents fall just a little bit, but I don't see any problem. I think it's unlikely in the Nashville and Middle Tennessee area for the rentals to truly make a crashing drop. Most of the time, rents around here tend to increase every year, and there's still some waiting lists at some apartments and stuff around here. So I think it's going to be dependent on kind of where you're at. Everything is somewhat cyclical, but I think it's very dependent upon location.
Yeah. So you're saying in your local, and this is important for anybody tuning in. If my head's turned to the side again, it's because I couldn't pull up the slideshow, so I have to have my notes on another screen. But what you're saying is at a local level, you're not seeing or predicting, and it's okay, this is all opinion, guys, do your own research, but real estate is local. And what we're seeing in the Tennessee market is still one of the strongest growth sectors in the entire U.S. From multiple sources. So you're saying, yeah, maybe it's happening somewhere, but it ain't happening here.
Not really. So when I look month over month over for where we're at over last year, I think we're 11% in Rutherford County over as far as sales prices go, and that's going to be completely hand in hand for the most part with rental prices. And I think everything's still up. So I've not seen I don't handle a lot of rental clients, but a lot of the ones that I talk to, I usually will refer out to somebody that's better suited to handle those. But many of them have a hard time finding a rental still. So that's why they're seeking help from an agent, because there's not a lot out there matching their needs.
So, Larry, how do you think that rent and interest rates affect each other, if you think they affect each other at all?
So I believe there is something to be said about perception, right? And then we've spoken about this before. I think perception affects a lot of decision making when it comes to whether they renew their leases or move to a house or move altogether. Right. I think a lot of people, and this is something that happened a lot, back in 19 and 20 and 21, people were getting into the housing market purchasing unnecessarily. Like they were not meant to be out buying a house or selling the houses, but in order to take advantage of the new interest rates or the lower interest rates, they entered the market, right? And that was due to the reaction of rates being low. They didn't have to move. They decided to move based on what was happening. Right. So I think what's happening is also affecting people's decision making right now, maybe in the opposite direction. Right. I do think interest rates do get people to be more open to buying, obviously, even though applications are still low right now, comparatively speaking. I think it does affect, in reality, I don't think that there's really it's not falling. It's plateauing. Right.
Like I think that's a good way. Yeah. Which is, I think, similar to what Chris was saying too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a reaction. Like everyone started renting because man, these rates are too high. I'm not going to buy houses. And they give up, they throw their hands up and they start renting. So the rent started increasing. And then all of a sudden, it's not as crazy as we thought it was going to be. Right.
Yeah.
So I think
that makes a lot of sense. So let me ask the audience, what do you see going on in your local market? Because remember, we're going to give you a national insight as best as we can, but you're the local agent. You're the local expert. When you're working with your investors and they're going, hey, what's rent look like? Is this going to be a good rental market for me? Do you know those answers? And if you do, what do those look like right now? Are you seeing it go up? Are you seeing it go down? Are you hearing more vacancies or things like, nope, application after application, there's a waiting list? What are you seeing in your hyper local market? We would love to know, because at the end of the day, you are the local agent, which means you have a better grasp, or at least should, on your local market. If you don't know what's going on in rent, let me tell you, it doesn't make you as equipped or prepared to handle what's going on in your residential sales, in your commercial sales. Because rent is where so many sales come from, and rent is also a direct reflection of people's perception on what's going on, and oftentimes it's rent that drives people into home ownership. So you've got to have a good pulse on that. So a couple notes that I'm reading, that I'm gonna pull over from this business wire is, and then this was pretty interesting. So it said throughout the third quarter, national rents declined by $7 from 1641 to 1634. So I think that's pretty interesting. $7. That doesn't seem like a crash to me. I feel like a crash, right? Just like with housing prices in 2008. just like when interest rates actually jump, right? We go from 3 to 10% in some places in a year. All right, that's polarizing stuff. But I feel like a $7 decline in an entire quarter, my words today, man, in an entire quarter, that doesn't scream crash. I think it's similar to what both of you guys were saying, which is it's basically it's a correction, right? Mm-hmm. It's a correction. So when we look at this, it does say though that the units newly occupied pace was double last year. But what's a little bit confusing about that is that the absorption rate remains high. So what this isn't saying, but what I'm going to take a guess on is that there's just not enough supply for people to turn around and be able to get into as many apartments. Especially since we saw this huge shift of people buying and selling, like we've talked about, right? For the last 2 years, it has been hot. Everybody was trying to buy something. And because they were trying to buy something, those might have been rental units. Those might have been opportunities for people. So the way I look at it, in my opinion, and based kind of on the information, is that I think the reason why we're seeing the absorption rate of how many people are moving in this month, this month year over year, is because they don't have supply, and we ran into the same problem when there was 50 people bidding on one house. It's like, listen, those 50 people would love to buy another home. They would not like to have to compete. So we would see a huge increase in pending sales, closed sales, if we had enough listings available to meet the supply. And so in some of my research, that's what I've been seeing. And especially I went in and looked at some of these markets where we're seeing the month over month declines here. So we see some positive growth over here. In some of the markets where we see a little bit of a decline, I went ahead and looked to see what supply was looking like over there. And it's not great. Let me tell you, it's not great. And the other thing that a lot of these articles don't give account for is the fact that there are small mom and pop landlords. And if they're not able to afford to buy, they're not going to be renting properties out. And that's the truth, right? And then if sellers are discouraged thinking interest rates are too high, they're not going to go buy something, which is not going to leave a vacancy for someone to come in and buy.
And real quick, if I'm not mistaken, I believe individual owners make up the vast majority of the rental market.
You know what's funny is I was thinking that and I was like, man, is that right? Or am I just imagining it?
Yeah. So individual owners and individual investors actually make up the vast majority of the market share for renting out properties. So everybody thinks it's hedge funds, but it's they own a lot, but individual owners still make up the vast majority.
Yeah, I would agree. So Larry, real quick, we've talked about this before, but I would love for you to just briefly share, because for those who are discouraged, agents and consumers, because they're like, I missed 3% interest rates, and now that they're at 6, 7, 8%, I'm screwed. I'll never own a home. Now, what would you say to them? Because I actually remember you you and I discussing this about how someone paying over list price at 3% might actually have a higher mortgage than someone who is paying, let's say, 7% under list price. Can you fact check me on that? Was that kind of what we discussed about? Is that a real possibility?
We probably should do like an entire show on just that. It was basically a meme that we found where they compared like the two scenarios: buying in 2021, $500,000 house at 3% interest rate, but you're paying $100,000 over asking because that's what's been going on in 2021, right? Yep. Or buying it for 500,000 and paying the exact same price, 500,000, not even asking a discount, but just paying 500,000 at a 6% interest rate. And the math was, bottom line was, after 10 years, it actually cost less to buy the $500,000 house at a 6% interest rate than to buy it at 600,000 at a 3% interest rate. But that's 10 years. So I guess, and that's where it stops. So maybe at 11 or 12, that's when it starts becoming more on the side of the 6% interest rate. But 10 years, guys, you're going to refinance, especially if the rates were to go down. Right. And the rate, I mean, let's be honest here, 10 years, that's 120 months. It's going to go down. So you're still you're still
also, right? Also 10 years, you're probably not going to be in that house anymore.
Exactly. I
mean, current market average is 5 to 7 years and you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
you're not everyone's worried, and this is something that I learned this from my wife, because she's also a loan officer, right? She's, when someone has a problem with the rate, she always asks them point blank, do you plan to stay in the house for 30 years? And they're like, no. And she's like, then why are we talking about it? That's literally how she responds to them, right?
I think it's really important, and this is why we do this show, and we're trying to, by the way, anybody listening, I need your feedback. Please give me your feedback on what you like, what you hate, and what you'd love to see about this show. I'm trying to create Scale Through the Fail to be an actual news source for you, where you find relevant information. We bring in relevant parties. I'm not here to sell you lead gen strategies and sign up for my coaching. I have those. You can buy them, but I wanted you to have a safe place to come in and learn what's happening and what to do about it in your market, in your business. So please give us feedback. If you're like, I love the mortgage update, great. If you're like, I hate it, or I wish I saw this, tell us. Larry's amazing. He will adapt, right? If you're like, you're spending too much time in this article, I hate the slideshows, it's not easy to read, right? Chris is too handsome, we need to put a bag over his head.
I'm definitely expecting some comments about my my amazing and incredible good looks. So
I mean, this is the guys with the beards and the hats and the flannel shirts. This is your season, bro. Yeah. Like this is it. This is hunting season.
yeah. Chris is trending right now. The look is trending. I need to grow a beard too, but it would take me like 20 years to grow a beard like his. So, yeah.
See, the thing is, I was doing this before it was trendy. Like I became trendy.
So, guys, give us your feedback, please. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, which is the Bank of America CEO predicts 2 years of pain ahead in the housing market. So before we get into the article, Chris, next 2 years, what do you predict? And you don't need to get into numbers, but just like overall feeling, vibe.
Next 2 years, I'm going to take some market share. That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. So for real, there's going to be a lot of people that look at this, they moan and groan. You don't know how many agents I talk to right now that they moan and groan because it's the holidays now. They're going to moan and groan because it's wintertime after that. They're going to moan and groan because it's springtime. It's spring break. Now we got to go. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the freaking market. There's going to be agents out there that are moaning and groaning about how bad it is, and they're complaining about it. And there's going to be agents like me that are going to swoop in, and I don't care what the market's doing. I'm going to be out here closing houses. Right after this, I'm headed to a closing. I put a deal under contract 2 days ago. Like, I am still selling, still closing buyers. I'm still closing sellers, and everybody else is still groaning about the market. So for me, what do I think actually is going to happen the next 2 years? Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit slower. But for those of us that are willing to work a little bit harder, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times harder, we're going to take market share.
I agree.
That's what I think is going to happen.
So what I'm hearing is you see opportunity.
That's correct.
See opportunity happening in your basically in your plan is where there's pain, there is gain.
Correct.
Or opportunity for gain. And I would agree. Larry, what would you say? Would you agree? What's your, the next 2 years? What do you think's on the horizon?
So kind of the same thread as Chris is saying. Same thing with loan officers. There's a lot of moaning and groaning. And there's actually people like exiting the business. Like I'm seeing people on Facebook with their new job doing something totally different. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just their way of basically not having faith in the system anymore, right? Or not having faith in the market anymore, right? Because obviously, if you have faith in it, why would you exit, right?
Right. I agree.
So
it's not even just faith in the market either. It's faith in themselves.
Also true that they can.
It's faith in themselves. They
thrive,
don't think
make
they can do it. They do not think they can do it.
I think there's two types, right? There's people who blame everything on everyone else, and they're not aware that they can actually change it themselves. And then there's people who are aware that they are the master of their destiny, but they just don't believe they have the ability to survive, right? So yes, I agree with both of those. In fact, I have a little bit of that in me, anyways, all the time, right? But I'm in sales just like you guys are, right? There's always a little bit of doubt, right?
But then, if you're not doubting to some degree, like you're about to fall off a cliff, then because or run into a brick wall, because that doubt humbles us and it reminds us how fragile the good lives that we live are. I mean, every day I look around me and I go, wow, I have it so good. I really don't want to lose this.
So I also take a look at that. And I think there's a difference in doubting your ability to sustain versus doubting your ability to grow at the level that you want to grow. So there's differences there too. So as far as me sustaining my normal business, I close about 50 deals a year. I think I can still most likely sustain that, or at least close to it, close enough to survive for a couple of years if it slows down a little bit. Do I think that I can scale that to 100, 150 over the next year? That's probably going to be a little bit harder. Is it impossible? No, but I think that's more of, if I have doubts, it's usually about actually scaling up as fast as I would like to, rather than sustaining. Most agents are doubting that they're even going to be able to sustain. So it's a very different vibe.
Yes.
So quoting, I have no idea how to say Bank of America CEO's last name, Moynihan, whatever. Quoting him though, he says that he believes that this was he believes this was going to happen earlier this year and not later. But he knew that he assumed there'd be a real slowdown. But what's interesting is he said he believes that we are in, or it depends on your definition of recession. A lot, that definition goes around a lot, but that it will be brief and mild when we hit its peak. And I think that's pretty interesting that he said that, but another thing is that the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, all of them have said that they believe that we haven't reached peak inflation. Now, I'm going to be honest here, a little transparent, and I hope I don't get suicided for this. I never trust either of those companies. All of them have been bailed out by the government, and all of them have been sued or penalized or taken to court by the government for acts of fraud. So the problem I have when we look at this is I don't want to ignore them. I don't want to be that arrogant guy who ignores people who, for better or for worse, are successful at what they have done. But I struggle to turn around and say, okay, but how good is his advice, or how much of it is him just steering? Like, let's be real. How much of it is him steering for something, right? Or excusing something, right? I mean, think about it. There are a ton of companies, some legitimate, some absolutely not. We know this, who still use COVID as an excuse to deliver poor customer service.
The government?
Chris, you're going to get a suicide package.
I'm going to go get my lumberjack axe now just to make sure I don't get suicided.
Yeah. Right. So when I hear things from this, guys, I take it with a grain of salt. I have my bias. Again, it's like someone, you're working out at the gym and you're ripped and shredded and you're great at what you do, and someone who's entirely out of shape, right, comes up to you and tries to correct you. Maybe they're right, but you look at them and you go, I don't want to listen to you. because you're not exemplifying what I believe. You don't run a business in this case, right? With Bank of America, you don't run a business that I turn around and respect, right? And appreciate. So I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to take your advice. So where do you guys stand when you hear, right, people like CEO of Bank of America, Goldman Sachs? Chris, let's start with you.
So I'll go back to there's a lot of news that I always think is noise. Always. Like 99% of it is noise. So for me, I don't watch a ton of it. I don't really care about a ton of it. I'll watch, I'm up to date a little bit on stuff, but at the end of the day, there's strategy and there's implementation. And I know that if I do those couple of things, it's not going to matter, right? No matter what's going on. So I think these people like to pull a lot of strings. I think the government pulls a lot of strings. So people in power and people in politics, they pull a lot of strings. They always have their own agenda. And that's not going to ever change. As long as they have free speech and the ability to do whatever they want to do, they're going to manipulate and they're going to do everything that they want. And that's not going anywhere. So when you take a look at different cryptos and all the different stuff that you're into, I know why it catches on. It catches on because people are trying to get away from some of that power. They're trying to decentralize some of the power because of all that going on. So I look at that stuff. Do I understand the crypto? Absolutely not. Right? Do I know how it works? No, I don't. Do I know why? Do I know why it works? Yes, I know why, but not how. So I know why it's growing, and I know why it's probably going to continue to grow, and why it dips. Once again, there's the big banks and the big people in power are trying to make different swings within that market, and that's what's starting to corrupt even the crypto market. Because it doesn't matter, as long as there's somebody with money and power, there's going to be people pulling strings. But I don't let the people in power limit or inhibit what my abilities are to do what I need to do every single day. Mm-hmm. I don't let whoever's in power as far as government goes make a single impact on my daily life, because it really doesn't. You can be upset that the Democrats are in power. You can be upset that the Republicans are in power. It does not affect my daily life with my wife and kid, me doing my job, and as long as I work hard enough, I can afford to pay $5 a gallon for gas. I can afford to pay extra for food or whatever else, because I'm doing the things that I need to implement for me and my family and not worrying about the noise.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. I know part of probably why a lot of us are mortgages and real estate is that it provided a pathway of freedom that a typical 9-to-5 job didn't, for better or for worse. I'm not hating on corporations. They serve a purpose, a very important purpose, but they're not designed to make people financially independent. They're designed to make people financially dependent. That is why there are a few companies out there that teach people how finances work, how running a company works. Why on earth do these ultra successful companies not have classes for free for their employees to teach them about how the company's successful? I mean, because they don't want people.
It creates direct competition.
Direct competition.
It also provides a pathway out. So any good corporation that runs well is supposed to keep their employees and sustain them as long as they can, keep them on the hook, do the 401k, which 401k, that's not going to get you anywhere in life. I mean, it'll get you to the grave, maybe safely, maybe. But other than that, you're going to be working forever. I mean, I pulled every penny that I had out of my 401k and put it into a house, and now taking the proceeds to invest in more real estate and do everything else. Because I started looking, I was like, I put this much in, I made this much over the course of 11 years. I was like, I did that last year with one investment, one single investment over a course of like 3 months. I made the same amount. I was like, why the heck would I leave this money in here and let it continue setting here, let it ride up, ride down, ride up, ride down, whenever I can do some flips, I can do some investing, whatever it is, create actual passive income and have an asset that I can sell anytime I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Larry, I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask the audience first. When you guys hear CEOs of these major companies, whether it's Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all of them, do you take what they say to heart? Do you think that they are experts and know what they're talking about? A lot of people assume just because they're rich and in power, they're experts. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. I really want to know. I want to know, like we talked about, what's going on in your rental market? What's going on when you are looking at the future of the current way your market locally is going? And then, like I said, tell us if you even agree with these guys when they're talking about stuff. You hear them go, oh, for sure we're going into a recession. It's going to be bad. Do you think they know what they're talking about? You think they're just bored? Let us know, yes or no, and why you believe what you believe. So, Larry, going back to you, what do you think? When those guys talk, right? You know, what do you think? Especially you with someone like Bank of America, right? Which does a ton of home loans and lending and borrowing.
So it's funny. I actually thought about Bank of America earlier today because I saw like a infographic about how fintech, meaning financial technology, is sort of unbundling the banking business, right? And Bank of America was at the center. So Bank of America in the center, and a whole bunch of other like Venmo and all these other companies who do the same thing, but they specialize in it, right? And I think that yes, the traditional bank, the big banks are under attack, right? Like not just in general because of failures or whatever, or being sued or whatever, but their livelihoods, they're being replaced. I like to call it the robots, right? The robots are taking over, right? Fintech, right? So I think in order to stay relevant, you're going to see CEOs of these corporations making very bold statements just to, again, stay relevant, right? I mean, weren't they the ones who offered like the no credit mortgage or whatever, the no credit, whatever? Again, I have nothing to say about that, but that was very shocking. I probably got more calls and text messages from people about that than any other bank's offering. Like the 321 is nothing compared to that, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't want to talk about it, but you should go and try and see if they can qualify you. But you'll probably find at the end of the day, there's always a catch of some sort, right? There's always something there, right? Yeah. And, of course, it was very polarizing to us, the lenders, because we're like, wait a minute, isn't that like reverse redlining or redlining where you're like choosing a demographics to market to? That's something that we're told not to do, right? Our CE every single year, make sure we go through not discriminating, et cetera, right? But that's really what they're doing, right?
It's reverse discriminating.
Yeah. So anyways,
it's still discriminating, but it's reverse discriminating.
Yeah, again, I have nothing to say about that, right? But I'm just saying that
he said, "Don't get me killed,
yeah,
Chris.
Yeah,
I don't want to get suicided."
They're discriminating against bearded guys in flannel shirts. Got it.
Bank of America, they roll deep. Let's just put it that way, okay? But anyways, I think there's something to be said about staying relevant, right? And if you really think about it, and this is why I feel the same way about politics, again, not to be political, but I really don't pay attention to it because just like Chris, it doesn't affect what I'm doing right now. It doesn't affect my daily. I'm still going to do what I do, whether or not this person's in power or this person's in power. Gas prices are $5. Okay, well, I didn't notice, right? It's just how I am, right? And it's not because I'm foolish about money and economics. It's like, I'm just going to do what I need to do to take care of my life and my family, regardless of what's happening.
You
right?
Can't control the gas price.
Exactly.
You have no control.
And being angry about it is not going to help. It's actually going to spend more of my energy and my time, which is not what I want, right? Right. But yeah, again, I think like if they can predict things like this, they would be billionaires, right? Because they have a crystal ball, apparently, right? I mean, if you have a crystal ball, you can predict the future, you can react to it and become rich, right? But none of these people are becoming they're not being crazy rich with their predictions.
Well, at that point, you're not even reacting. So react would be after. So you're being proactive against that at that point.
Yep. And I think
while everyone else reacts.
Right. And I think that it's always better to give bad news or give like the sky is falling kind of news, because if it doesn't, well, then we're good. We're not going to chastise you for making this comment, right? But if you go, dude, everything's gonna be great, we're gonna be millionaires by next year, and it doesn't happen, well then yeah, you're gonna be hung for that. You know what I'm saying? So it's always easier to give bad the sky's falling news. And then if it doesn't happen, oh well, we prepared ourselves. I told you about it.
News channel.
That's
about anything, not even including this. I mean, you take wars, you take other countries, you take everything. Everything's bad. Mm-hmm. If you watch the news, the whole world is ending, like every single day.
Right.
Like everyone's dying, everyone's sick, everyone's at war, everyone hates each other.
Everyone's screwed.
Like we're all dead.
Yeah.
So the rapture is literally happening yesterday. So like if you watch the news, that's literally what's going on. But it's not accurate.
Yeah, and like I said, he can always if someone gives a bad prediction and it doesn't happen, he can be like, well, there you go. I told you guys it was going to happen, so we all reacted and prepared for it, and we avoided it. So I actually take credit for this. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
and that's everywhere.
So yeah, bottom line, noise is noise, pure noise.
I was just gonna say, so news or noise, and you said noise, Chris. News or noise?
Noise.
What about rent prices? News or noise?
I think they're stabilizing. Anything's going to have some fluctuations. Anything that doesn't fluctuate a little bit, up and down a little bit, it's going to be unlikely. Prices move for a reason.
Yes.
Supply and demand. It's going to happen. Does that mean it's going to crash?
So
no.
Kind of meeting in the middle. It's like it's news, but it's not the kind of news that it's suggesting.
It's not crashing.
Mm-hmm. It's not crashing. No, it's sort of a plateau, sort of a correction, right? The landlords are starting to realize they can't raise or like increase the rent too high, because no one's going to be able to afford it, right? Especially because of inflation, right? And what's going on, right? So the dollars being like driven in lower in value, so they can't just increase rent prices and expect people to jump on board, right? So there has to be some sort of rational, reasonable pricing there, so they're trying to take advantage of it when the going was good, right? It's like, oh, no one's buying because the interest rates are high, let's jack up the price on the rent because we can, right? So they stole some extra money, but it wasn't really the level it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think what we saw is we just saw people taking advantage of an opportunity.
Yes.
We saw, and for all the people who are mad at landlords, let me do a humility check for you. Every single person who sold a home that I saw during peak times sold it for an unbelievable amount. They sold it for every dollar they could possibly get. They didn't want inspections. They didn't want appraisals. They only wanted cash buyers. They wanted to close in 2 days. They wanted lease backs for free. I mean, guys, order me pizza to drop my kids off at daycare. So let me tell you, because I see a lot of hate from landlords. Let me tell you, if you have a landlord and they're even remotely decent, I'm not speaking about the bad ones, be grateful because they bought that house and you were able to live in it. Because if you were able to buy a house, you would own it. And if you don't, you need a place to live. Second thing is, the moment you jump on landlords, remember that every time that an opportunity for the average person to make more money at the expense of someone else, their family, their hard work, their savings, they took full advantage of it. It wasn't real estate agents. Can you believe that people actually blamed real estate agents for pricing going up? As if agents own the houses. As if, you know what the average agent I knew did? They looked at comps, said, listen, you're trying to sell the house for $100,000 more than the data shows. and then it sells. The agent can't change that. Then 50 people bid on it. That's not the agent. The agent didn't dictate what other people were willing to pay. That's like because Chris goes in and says, hey, look at this cool item at Walmart, and then Walmart jacks up the price $100. They go, Chris, how could you do that? How dare you jack up the prices of something you have absolutely no control of, right? And so I think
I did blame the agents, the buyer's agents, for allowing their people to pay 20% more than they're supposed to, though.
It's not allowing. So I mean, at the end of the day, our buyers make the offers. I mean, I can give them advice, I can give them odds, I can give them statistics. I can say, hey, look, on average, homes in this neighborhood are selling for 103%. Is that what you want to do? I never said, hey, we need to write this offer for 25 grand over. I said, hey, look, this is the statistics. This is what it's looking like.
Right.
What do you want to do? Right.
Well, so good agent.
I work for them. They're telling me what to do.
Of course, a good agent will provide them the information they need to make a good decision, right? But I'm talking about the agents. Like, you better come up with a better offer, because I'm not submitting this. There's no way I'm submitting a below asking offer. There's no way I'm going to do that.
I don't know that I've ever told someone no, I would not write an offer.
Yeah, see, I
don't know that I've ever done that.
I think and this is a whole different discussion for another time.
Yeah,
but here's what we're gonna leave this with, because I feel like if we open up this can of worms, we're gonna be here for another year. So here's what I want everybody to kind of leave with: the kind of what's next. Again, we're gonna have like fancy like transition cards. It's gonna be amazing. Just you wait, guys. Again, please give us your feedback. I really need to know. I want to grow this show. I want it to make it better every single week and bring you value. But here's the what's next part. What do you do next with what we discussed today? From what I've heard, and I want after I kind of conclude it, see whether Larry and Chris agree. But you need to be, if you're an agent, you need to be an expert in your local area. And you don't need to be spending a ton of time panicking about what the CEO of Bank of America says, what the president even says he's going to do. And instead focus on what you can do today to serve someone else and grow your business, because chances are you will be able to produce results faster than the outcome of anybody else's at the top's decision will affect your life and the lives of the people you serve. Now, you do need to be consciously aware, right? Because your clients will be consciously aware. They're going to look at the Bank of America CEO and go, I bank at Bank of America. He said the sky's falling. You need to know the data. You need to know what it says. That's why you tune in Fridays, and we added Larry in to where every Friday we're going to try and have a mortgage update for you, where you can know what's going on. And we're going to try and bring in articles like this so that when your client says, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs said the sky is falling, now is not a good time to buy, you can turn around and decide for yourself how you're going to present that to your clients factually. Because the thing is that when I read these articles, here's a really important thing. The CEOs did not quote any data. That's the big thing. Now, they said data that is readily available. Oh, well, simple math formula, right? Oh, well, this went up by 5.8%. This went, okay. Jerome Powell, head of the Feds, already said that. They didn't quote any data that validated their opinions, right? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying they're still just opinions. And if you can teach a client how to expertly navigate their market now, make smart decisions now, you're going to gain market share and they're going to win. Now, clients, consumers, if you're watching this, have an agent that absolutely is an expert. Ask them about interest rates. Ask them about rental prices. Ask them about what's going on in a hyper-local market. And if they don't know, that's not always a bad thing, because if they're willing to go get the answer, I don't always know. Half the time, the only reason I know stuff is because I do this show. And so I got to prepare for it and not look like an idiot. Good luck with that, Robert. But, right. But I prepare for it. It's part of why I do this show. It keeps me accountable to staying up to date. Agents, that's why we do this show for you. So you don't have to do as much work we're going to do a lot of the work for you. Just show up, learn, feedback, ask questions. Last week, we had people asking questions. We had like 40, 50 comments, and we were answering them live for you. Chris, thank you so much.
See you guys.
Have a good one. So with that being said, everybody, let's give a warm welcome, warm thank you for Larry coming on. Larry, thanks so much for that Mortgage Minute and that update for us. Thanks for your opinions and what we're doing in the market. I appreciate the clarity that you're trying to bring, serving your clients. And we will be seeing Larry next week with another weekly mortgage update. Larry, thank you so much, brother.
No problem, boss. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
And guys, every Friday, 9 a.m. Central, we go live. Sometimes we have slight delays in my camera and speech. If you didn't notice today, I did, and it drove me crazy. I was trying to fix things all last night, and I think I just made them worse. Larry knows what I'm talking about. He's been through that 100 times. Welcome to Messing with Tech. But here's the thing. I need your feedback. I need your help. I want to create the best show ever for real estate news, noise, and what's next. So tell me one thing you loved about the show, and tell me one thing that you'd love to see or improve on. Drop a comment. It would be super valuable for us. It would allow me an opportunity to grow and serve you better. And maybe I'll even feature your comment as the improvement part of the show, because that's really the goal that we have. Wherever you're watching from, please like and comment and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, it's going to be like a follow. We're going to be having a lot more shows like this, but also we're going to be introducing some gamification coming up, some contests and giveaways, and even a newsletter. What? I'm saying that out loud. Now I'm stressing myself out, but that's why I'm doing it, because I got to get it done for you guys. So I will see you next Friday, 9 a.m. Central. Have a great weekend. Be prepared and go crush it.